Moments that almost ruined music careers. Back in November 2021, tens of thousands of fans packed into NRG Park in Houston for Travis Scott's Astroworld Festival, and it was supposed to be a celebration of music and energy, with over 50,000 people there to see one of hip-hop's biggest stars perform live. So as the lights dimmed and Travis walked on stage, the crowd exploded with excitement while the show began. But within minutes, things started to spiral out of control. You see, the crowd near the front became so tightly packed that people could barely move or breathe, and at 9:07 p.m., the first 911 calls started coming in. Dozens of fans were passing out, so chaos quickly spread through the crowd. But then, something happened that made everything even worse. The thing is, Travis noticed people struggling and even paused a few times to point out someone who had fainted. However, he kept performing while medics rushed into the crowd, and at 9:38 p.m., officials declared a mass casualty event. The show went on for nearly 40 more minutes as fans started screaming for help and climbing camera platforms, trying to get someone's attention. But once the concert ended, the backlash hit almost instantly. As it turns out, 10 people lost their lives that night, and over 100 more were injured, so the tragedy sparked outrage across the world, and Travis Scott was blamed for not stopping the show. Within days, his brand deals with Nike, Dior, and Anheuser-Busch were canceled, his concerts were pulled, and his reputation collapsed overnight. This seemed career-ending for him, but this wasn't the end of his story. What I mean is that after months of silence, Travis slowly started making his way back. He launched a safety initiative called Project Heal and began performing again, while in 2023, his new album Utopia debuted at #1. Yet no matter how big his comeback got, the Astroworld tragedy is still remembered by many today. Artists who were robbed of their Grammy Award. Back in January 2014, the Grammy Awards made one of the most controversial decisions in rap history. Kendrick Lamar's debut album, Good Kid, M.A.A.D. City, had taken over the world, so critics called it a masterpiece, while fans called it the album of a generation. It had 7 Grammy nominations, and everyone thought it was finally Kendrick's moment. But when the envelope opened, nobody could believe what they heard. You see, the award for Best Rap Album didn't go to Kendrick, as it went to Macklemore and Ryan Lewis for The Heist. The same album had Thrift Shop and Can't Hold Us, which were massive hits, yet critics felt it didn't come close to Kendrick's storytelling, lyricism, or impact. But things got even more awkward after the show. The thing is, Macklemore texted Kendrick saying, "You got robbed, I wanted you to win," and then he posted that text on Instagram for everyone to see. Fans saw it as tone deaf, so Drake called it whack, and the internet exploded. What was meant as an apology only made the backlash worse, as the debate over race and privilege in hip-hop completely took over the conversation. But Kendrick's response was the exact opposite of what anyone expected. As it turns out, Kendrick just brushed it off, saying Macklemore worked hard and deserved his success. Yet deep down, everyone knew who the real winner was, and in the end, Kendrick would come back stronger than ever. So over the next few years, he won 13 Grammys as well as a Pulitzer Prize. Moments that destroyed music careers. Back in 2013, Robin Thicke was on top of the world as his song Blurred Lines was everywhere. It was the #1 song in America for 12 straight weeks and sold millions of copies, making him one of the biggest names in pop music. He had spent years as a middle-tier R&B artist, so finally reaching superstardom felt like a dream come true. But almost as fast as it blew up, his entire career started falling apart. You see, Blurred Lines sparked outrage right after it dropped, as the lyrics were accused of promoting rape culture, and the video showed topless models dancing around fully clothed men. Critics called it one of the most sexist songs ever made, so colleges began banning it on campuses, while the backlash spread everywhere. But that was not even the biggest problem he was about to face. The thing is, Robin was hit with a lawsuit from Marvin Gaye's family for copying Got to Give It Up, and during the case he admitted under oath that he had been high on pills as well as drunk through most of that year. He even revealed that Pharrell had written almost all of the song, so his confession crushed his credibility. But his personal life made things even worse. What I mean is that after a viral photo showed him groping another woman, his wife Paula Patton left him, so in a desperate move, he released an entire album begging her to take him back. It was called Paula, and every song on it was about her. But that album did not save him, it buried him. As it turns out, Paula became one of the biggest flops in music history, as it sold just 24,000 copies in its first week in the United States, and barely 500 in the United Kingdom. The failure was humiliating, so after that, Thicke vanished from the charts while his mainstream career never recovered, as the same song that made him famous ended up destroying everything he had built. Artists who changed genres to become their best. Back in 2015, a new artist named Post Malone dropped a song called White Iverson on SoundCloud, and it instantly blew up, turning this kid from Texas into one of the biggest new names in hip-hop. So within just a few years, he was dominating the charts with hits like Congratulations, Rockstar, and Psycho. So by 2019, he was one of the biggest rappers on the planet. But after reaching the top of the hip-hop world, Post started to lose that same spark. You see, by 2023, he tried something totally different with an album called Austin, which leaned more into pop and rock, yet it didn't connect the way his earlier music did. fans felt like something was missing. So for the first time in his career, Post didn't seem sure where he fit anymore. But what nobody realized was that this so-called down period was setting up one of the biggest comebacks in modern music. The thing is, Post Malone had always loved country music, as he grew up in Texas listening to old country legends, and even said years earlier that he'd make a country album one day. So in 2024, he finally did, teaming up with Morgan Wallen for I Had Some Help, which became a record-breaking hit as it debuted at #1 on both the Hot 100 and the country chart at the exact same time. But that was just the beginning of his new era. As it turns out, Post followed it up with his first full country album, F1 Trillion, which debuted at #1 across every major chart and featured legends like Dolly Parton, Luke Combs, as well as Chris Stapleton. So for the first time in years, everyone agreed Post Malone sounded like he was finally making the music he was born to make. Music artists that got rejected before they became big. Back in 2005, there was a 19-year-old singer from New York named Stephanie Germanotta, who most people now know as Lady Gaga. She was just another ambitious musician trying to make it in the city, performing in tiny clubs and piano bars while hoping someone in the industry would finally notice her. But one day, something unbelievable happened that seemed like it would change her life forever. You see, Island Def Jam CEO L.A. Reid was walking down a hallway when he heard her singing behind a door, so he stopped immediately and asked her to come to his office. Gaga sat down at his piano wearing tall white go-go boots and started performing her heart out while Reid watched in disbelief. He said, "You're incredible, you're going to change music." So he signed her to Def Jam Records right then and there. But what happened after this became one of the biggest mistakes in music history. The thing is, just 3 months later, Reid got her demo tapes and suddenly changed his mind. He said he didn't hear the same spark anymore, called the songs disgusting, and dropped her from the label immediately. So Gaga was crushed, as she had just gotten her big break, and now it was gone before she ever released a single song. But that rejection would end up being the moment that built the superstar we know today. As it turns out, Gaga turned all that pain into motivation while performing again in small New York clubs, writing songs that reflected her frustration and drive to prove everyone wrong. One of those songs was Paper Gangsta, which secretly took a jab at the label that dropped her. And when she later released Marry the Night, the music video actually showed that exact moment in her life when Def Jam let her go. But it wouldn't be long at all until Lady Gaga bounced back. What I mean is that in 2007, Gaga signed with Interscope Records after producer Vincent Herbert discovered her. And during a studio session, Akon heard her singing, so he immediately pushed to sign her to his label under Interscope. Just 1 year later, in April 2008, she dropped Just Dance, and the world went crazy as it hit #1 in multiple countries while selling millions of copies that officially launched her into global stardom. Songs that were almost sung by completely different artists. Back in 2012, 3 songwriters gathered inside a tiny Montessori school, not a fancy studio, to write a new song for Beyonce. The team included Sasha Scarbeck, Stefan Macchio, and last but not least, Mozella, who had just gone through a devastating breakup, so she had actually just canceled her wedding that same week. She was heartbroken, barely holding it together, and she almost skipped the session completely. But that emotional pain ended up creating one of the most powerful pop songs of the decade. You see, when Macchio started playing soft piano chords, Mozella broke down crying, and within hours, they wrote a song called Wrecking Ball. It was originally meant for Beyonce, however. As they worked, they realized the song was way too raw and personal for her musical style at the time. So instead of sending it to Beyonce's team, they quietly kept it to themselves. But fate had other plans for this song. The thing is, Mozella happened to know Miley Cyrus personally, so when she told Miley about her heartbreak, Miley instantly connected because she was going through her own messy breakup with Liam Hemsworth, and that's when Mozella sent her the demo. And Miley fell in love with it immediately, saying it felt like her story too. But no one at the time expected how massive it was about to become. As it turns out, Miley recorded Wrecking Ball just weeks later, and it became her first ever #1 hit, breaking Vevo records as well as topping charts across the world, while completely transforming her image forever, while the piano you hear in the final version is the exact same one from that tiny schoolroom session. Music artists who were stars but then fell off. Back in 2017, there was a rapper from Brooklyn named 6ix9ine who blew up out of nowhere. His first big song, Gummo, spread like wildfire. So suddenly, everyone was talking about the guy with rainbow hair and face tattoos. He was loud, crazy, and impossible to ignore, while his songs kept climbing the charts faster than anyone expected. But behind all that fame, there was a dangerous secret he was hiding. You see, 6ix9ine had linked himself to a real street gang to make his image look tougher, and the people in his music videos were actual gang members. His wild lifestyle was not just an act, and for a while, it worked perfectly. His debut album hit #2 on the Billboard charts, so songs like Feifei with Nicki Minaj made him one of the biggest rappers on the planet, but everything started crashing down for him faster than it rose. The thing is, by late 2018, the FBI arrested him on racketeering and weapons charges, so facing almost 50 years in prison, 6ix9ine made a move that no one in hip-hop ever forgets. He snitched on his entire crew in court to save himself. That one decision destroyed his image overnight, as rappers started calling him a rat, and no one wanted to be seen working with him again, but somehow he still tried to make a comeback. As it turns out, after getting out of prison in 2020, he dropped a song called Gooba, which broke YouTube records in just one day, yet soon after, his second album completely flopped. Streaming services stopped promoting him and fans lost interest, so his crazy online persona just was not entertaining anymore, while over the next few years, 6ix9ine faced tax problems, lawsuits, and multiple arrests, so he ended up losing almost everything he had as his fame disappeared just as fast as it came. Music artists who blew up quickly, then fell off. Back in 2013, there was this random guy named David Bird who worked at an advertising agency in San Francisco while dreaming about breaking into comedy. He wasn't even trying to be a rapper, yet he thought music might just be his way in. So one day he uploaded a music video called Ex-Boyfriend under the name Lil Dicky, and overnight his entire life changed. But what happened shortly after this turned a goofy side project into one of the most unlikely success stories in hip-hop. You see, that video hit 1 million views in a single day, mostly thanks to Reddit blowing it up so suddenly. This regular office guy was a viral sensation. He used that attention to crowdfund his first album, raising over $100,000 from fans who called themselves dickheads, proving he had built a real community. Then in 2015, he dropped Professional Rapper, an album that hit #1 on multiple charts and featured legends like Snoop Dogg and T-Pain. But just when it seemed like Lil Dicky was about to take over rap, he completely vanished from the scene. The thing is, after his massive hit Save Dat Money, he barely released anything new. But then years later, he came back in 2018 with Freaky Friday featuring Chris Brown, which went global. After that, he released Earth, a celebrity-filled song to help the planet, yet fans didn't love it, and critics tore it apart. But what nobody knew at the time was that Lil Dicky was quietly building something else that would change everything again. As it turns out, he had stopped making music because he was creating a TV show about himself, and in 2020, his show Dave became one of the biggest comedies on FX with millions of viewers each week. The only problem was, it took up all his time, so he admitted he was working 16 hours a day while having zero energy left for music. But when the show ended in 2023, it looked like he might just revive his music career. What I mean is that in 2024, he dropped Peanut, a soundtrack made of songs from the show instead of new music, and it flopped. Since then, he's barely released anything while refusing to tour, so his numbers have dropped by millions. Who became stars after they featured on just one song. Back in late 2009, there was an unknown singer-songwriter from Hawaii named Bruno Mars who was trying to make it in Los Angeles, and he had already been dropped by one label while being completely broke, so he was even thinking about quitting music altogether. He was just writing songs behind the scenes, hoping one of them would finally take off. But then, one single recording session changed everything. You see, during a writing session for rapper B.O.B., Bruno came up with a smooth hook that went, "Beautiful girls all over the world, I could be chasing, but my time would be wasted." And everyone listening to him loved it, although some label executives didn't even want Bruno's voice on it, saying they needed a safer singer instead. Yet Bruno's version felt too good to ignore. But on top of that, Bruno refused to step aside, and that decision would change his life forever. As it turns out, the song, called Nothing on You by B.O.B. and Bruno Mars, came out in early 2010 and blew up instantly. So within weeks, it hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 while selling millions and dominating radio stations everywhere. So suddenly, everyone wanted to know who the guy singing that catchy hook was. But this was just the beginning of Bruno's rise. The thing is, right after Nothing on You, he featured on another massive hit called Billionaire with Travie McCoy, and by the end of that same year, he dropped his debut single, Just the Way You Are, which also went #1, so he had officially become one of the fastest rising artists in pop music, winning 16 Grammy Awards and 3 Records of the Years. Moments that created the most famous songs in history. Back in December 2018, a 19-year-old named Lil Nas X was just another unknown artist trying to make music from his bedroom, so he bought a beat online for $30, mixed it with a country sample, and uploaded a short song called Old Town Road. It seemed like just another random upload, yet almost no one cared at first. But within weeks, that tiny song started taking over the internet. You see, people on TikTok began using it for the Yeehaw Challenge, where they'd turn into cowboys mid-video, so it spread like wildfire, and suddenly Old Town Road was everywhere. The song climbed multiple Billboard charts at once, even landing on the country chart. But then, Billboard did something that shocked everyone. The thing is, they removed Old Town Road from the country chart, claiming it didn't fit the genre. So fans were furious, saying it was because Lil Nas X was a black artist mixing country and trap. For a moment, it looked like his viral song was about to fade away, as people argued over what even counted as country. But one unexpected person was watching the whole thing. As it turns out, country legend Billy Ray Cyrus saw what happened and decided to help. He tweeted out his support, telling a short personal story, and continued on by saying, "Only outlaws are outlawed." Then just days later, he shocked the world when he joined Lil Nas X to record a remix. But nobody was ready for what happened because of this remix. What I mean is that the song went absolutely viral, as the new version broke every record imaginable and hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, staying there for 19 straight weeks, the longest run in history, while it won Grammys, sold millions, and turned Old Town Road into one of the most famous songs ever made.